Hi there, I'm Doireann Mc Dermott and you're watching Dukascopy TV. Mexico's government recently introduced a new bill in order to spur lending. Mexico has high capital levels, however it lends much less than other countries in Latin America. I am joined today by Latin American expert Juan Flores from the University of Geneva to have a look at this in further detail. Welcome today. So in looking at this a little bit closer, what type of impact will this reform of course have, and what other changes will we be seeing in the financial sector in Mexico?
So I think first of all this reform goes in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So Mexico's levels of credits are low even for Mexico's own standards. I mean, we have not reached the levels of the pre-crisis period before 1994. So there is a true problem here, not only because credit is low, but also because credit is expensive. So there are two things that this reform may want to face. So the first issue is a question of guarantees. That means to give the proper incentives to banks to lend. And there is a problem there because the legal system in Mexico is quite slow and inefficient. So banks, of course, they have a high risk every time they lend. So the first thing to do is to improve this legal procedure. So to give these proper incentives to make lending a sure business. So this should actually lower the cost of credit and then also increase these levels. The second part of the reform aims also to increase competition. So the Mexican banking sector mainly, even if there are many banks, only few of them have a high market share for deposits. So these banks have also this, because of these concentration levels, they have also the incentives to increase the cost of their lending. So the idea here is to create a new commission that should analyze the competition levels in the sector, and then once they release a report, they will do something to encourage more competition in this sector. So these two issues are rightly foreseen in the reform. And third of all, probably, which is less discussed, is the role of development banks. So development banks in Mexico, because they have to be profitable, they have not pursued their role as development promoters. So the reform also forces a more active role, one where the development banks take also more risk in order to increase the basis of the persons, of the small and medium enterprises that may actually receive this credit in order to increase investment. So overall, I would say that the impact will be positive, not immediately, but in the medium term.
And there's also another reform, the Telecom reform, which is introduced in order to broaden the market and introduce new competition, as it is currently dominated by two telecom tycoons. Now, can you tell me the details of this reform and what you expect to see for the future of this sector?
Yes, the situation of television, of cell phone, and of landlines telephones in Mexico is one of a sector which is very, very concentrated. So, for instance, on television we have two firms that have actually 80% of the market share, which is very, very high. So what this reform aims to do is to encourage to have more competitors. So it will release the number of licenses, which will be higher. So that's on the one part. On the other part, in terms of cell phones and on the landline telephones, what this reform aims to do is also to encourage the higher participation of more competitors through an asymmetric treatment of this new competitor. So it has fixed 50% market share as a benchmark. So all the new competitors that enter and will have to fight for this market share, they will have a preferential treatment. So so that should be good in terms of number of competitors. But of course, probably the negative side, or the side where I would be more skeptical, is that the fact that you have more competition or more competitors, that does not mean that they will behave also in a competitive manner. So in general, the telecommunication sector is one that is actually by nature quite a concentrated one. So if you have more competitors, nothing guarantees that they will also behave in a more competitive manner. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that pretty much of this reform also aims to break the monopoly, mainly the monopoly in the telephone sector, and that will invite other major agents, major competitors, for instance, from television, to enter into the telephone sector, whereas the telephone sector are not allowed to enter into the television sector, or if they allow, they will have to pay the entry, because they will not have this preferential treatment that I talked about.
And finally, let's have a look at the energy reforms now. This is very, very important for Mexico's economy, so can you tell me more, and of course, what type of challenges energy reforms are facing?
So here I would like to start with the fact that all these reforms could take place because there was a pact among the major political parties in Mexico. So they agreed upon the reforms that the country needed. However, there has been already some divisions within the political party. So this pact has evidenced some weaknesses, and that may be a major impact, or have a major negative impact on the process, on the rapidity of the reforms. Perhaps this is most important for the energy reform, because there is where the major political capital is needed. So there had been already an energy reform in 2008. The idea here was to improve the transparency and the corporate governance of Pemex, which is the state firm, the state oil firm. So now the idea is not only to continue to push forward on this direction, but also to give some scope to the private sector to step in. So the idea here is to find the market mechanisms, the incentives to allow this private investment in order to have an increase in the oil production, which has been lowering since the last years. So first of all, this market mechanism, and second, to increase competition in other subsectors, like for instance transport or refinery, that will also boost the productivity of the oil sector.
Thank you very much for coming to the studio today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Dúchascalpaí TV. Well, viewers, do stay tuned for more economic updates, forex analysis, and of course interviews. But for now, goodbye.